What's up, everybody? Welcome to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesar Sportsbook. I'm Katie Mox, and today we are talking NBA Conference Finals with our guy, Danny Brasco. Mr. Monday, here on a Thursday. How are we doing, Danny B?
I'm doing good, Katie. Good boys. Thursday, Monday. I don't care. NBA playoffs have been electric. I'm excited to talk them with you. It's been fantastic so far.
It has. So you are a tried and true New Yorker. Just real quick thoughts on the Knicks season. Obviously, the amount of injuries they just couldn't. There's no way that they could get farther than they did. But man, there was no quit in that team. You still proud of this team? Excited for the future?
How can you not be? The Villanova guys, I mean, so many, unsung hero. They're sung now, but the role players scrapped it out. Everyone stepped up and did what they could, from Miles McBride to Alec Burks coming off the bench and straight hooping. So we had some hashtag Knicks tape moments. It was a great fight, great grit and kind of soul of the city. But got to think that we should have gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals. So many injuries. We were like Bojan Bogdanovic away, I feel like, from beating them, right? We just needed like a little more scoring to keep up with the pace of the insane, pace of play from the Pacers. And just couldn't hang on with all the injuries. But great season. I'm excited to see what we add.
No, I agree with you. And I do think that given the injuries, even if they got out of that last series, they were no match for the Celtics, being as down the amount of play. A healthy Knicks with everybody, including Julius Randle, I think they might have been able to give the Celtics a run for their money, and maybe we'll see that next season.
And now the debate is like, what do you do with this team? Do you touch it? Do you mess with it? Right? It's got so much grit and heart and skill. Of course, Brunson leading the team.
Yeah.
Does it needs a second scoring option? People say Randle, when he comes back, that's it. Or is it go out and add, mix it up? It's like, I'm scared to touch it, but I feel like we need a little more something, but I'm scared to touch it.
I would say you need another score, and jury's is still out on Julius Randle for me in the postseason, right? Because we've seen him kind of fall off a ledge. Anyways, one more thing I want to talk to you about the NBA season is, it seems to be, and I did see that you shared this on your social media, that Inside the NBA is coming to a close. NBC is closing in on a deal with the NBA to showcase their games. There's not a show that's ever been like Inside the NBA. I don't think there will be a show that will ever be able to replicate that. And I spent a large portion of this morning, I saw your thing that you posted on social, which was kind of a compilation of their greatest moments. And then I just started watching I was just sat there for like 45 minutes this morning, just watching clips from their greatest moments. I mean, even this year when Charles was talking about sending the team to Galveston, they couldn't even go to Cabo with the dirty water. And when Shaq gets pushed into the Christmas tree, and I mean, come on, right? What's your favorite Inside the NBA moment, and how much will this? How you see, you're already crying. I already have you crying. I mean, we're already that upset.
Pouring tears, not only, of course, from sadness that this show is coming, that this team is, unit is coming to a close, but pouring tears from laughter. Like, there's not a funnier show. It's almost like how like comedy is like the last bastion of where you can like kind of just say funny stuff, no matter what the culture is like or the sentiment, or like they can say whatever they want and it's hilarious. They're just like, the dynamic is so amazing. I'm remembering most recently the story of Chuck getting the bracelet from the guy in the steam room. When Shaq starts laughing, like when Shaq starts going and he makes Ernie laugh, I'm crying. When Ernie's laughing, it's over. Like, I was crying, Katie. I was crying.
I know. I'm so sad. And obviously Chuck has in his contract that if it ever leaves TNT, he's not going to go with it. Ernie, obviously very tied into TNT. He calls baseball games as well. So it appears that this show will not be moving to NBC. But I like NBC. Grew up watching the league on NBC. Everybody's excited for that theme song potentially to come back. So it's an end of an era, but certainly not the end of good programming. And certainly that show has set the bar. So I'm excited to see what NBC can do with it. So let's enough about the sadness, right? Let's talk about these crazy games that happened. Yeah. I mean, again, I spent 45 minutes, Danny, just watching clips of that show, crying, laughing this morning. It's just funny. It's too good. It's too good.
Send him down to Galveston, that dirty water.
Oh my God. Oh my, and then there was whatever. We could talk about this the entire show, and I'm sure people don't necessarily want to hear about this. So we're moving on, people. All right, we're moving on. The Mavericks defeat the T Wolves, 108 right to 105. Is that what it is? I don't know. I have a typo on my thing here.
No,
Look,
yeah.
the Mavericks. First, it's their first game one win under coach Jason Kidd in 6 tries. So that's something different for them in this series. They were down 83 to 82. Luka used his signature shot, step back to close out game one. 15 of 33 points in the fourth quarter. It's the second most, Danny, fourth quarter points in his playoff career. Then you got Kyrie Irving in the first half. My goodness, 24 points in the first half before Luka started to heat up. And Danny, Luka and Kyrie scored 63 of the team's 108 points. They scored or assisted in 88 of 108 points. That's 81%. They had 81% of the points and the assists in this game. Are you jazzed? Oh, maybe the wrong thing to say about the Mavs. Are you excited about this Mavs team, and can they get past the T-Wolves?
I really am. And I think they can. This is going to be a really good series. I'm certainly not calling them the series winners yet, but they felt like a sneaky dark horse from the beginning, with Kyrie being the Batman or the Robin to Luka's Batman. You know, that's what he needs. And we've seen Kyrie, of course, in championship scenarios before, be able to be that closer, that guy. He was on fire in the first half. Katie, funny enough, I had a bet. Me and my buddies were looking for some long shots before the game. I had Kyrie for 30-plus points for plus 410, right? I'm watching the game. He's going off in the first half. And in the second half, Katie, he had 24.
We're going to hit.
But in the second half, I'm sweating. He only had 6 points in the second half, and he only got to 30 on 2 free throws at the very end of the game to close it out. I cashed out because I was so worried. So I got most of the profit, but it was a major sweat. It was
that
like
is
plus,
major, and you wouldn't even think that, especially with the way that the first half went, and then all of a sudden Luka just turned the gas on. But I had Kyrie over on his points and assists, which was super low. It was at 26 and a half, and I was like, I'm going to buy the dip here because he wasn't that productive, particularly with scoring in the last series. But I just knew against his Timberwolves team they were going to have to do something different, and he came out there and his shot attempts increased quite a bit as well.
And I found it interesting that, he's a sharpshooter. Of course, we know his ball handling skills, his ability to finish at the rim, but he was exclusively attacking the rim, going inside. Yeah. I thought he would be pulling more threes from the outside. I took a little sprinkle on like 3-4 plus made threes. It was all inside. So he got it done there, and he looked really good. The Mavs, of course, have got it done on the back of their defense as well. We know how good the Wolves defense has been, but look at the Mavs turnaround. I mean, guys like Derek Lively off the bench, giving great minutes, great energy, great size and defense and rebounding. And it's been a team effort. Everyone's putting work in. Even Luka at the end on that alley-oop, lob attempt, he got in there, a swat at major defensive play that really, moved the momentum for the Mavs. So I've been very impressed with them defensively, and I guess I'll talk about that a little more in the show when we get to that.
Yeah, I still have the Timberwolves in 7. That was my series. I wasn't surprised. I did think that the T-Wolves were going to fall in this very first game, just coming off that super emotional win in Denver, right, against the defending champs, Game 7. I could see them faltering here. And we'll get into Game 2 here, but Ant-Man said he wanted Kyrie. Well, careful what you wish for, my guy, because Kyrie definitely won that battle, at least for Game 1. Minnesota just 3-3 at home this postseason. They're 5-1 on the road, so they tend to do a little bit better on the road. They're looking to avoid a 2-0 in this series with both losses at home. Danny, teams that lose the first of the 2 games of a best-of-7 series at home, they are 5-29. That's their season series record. So not so good, looking to avoid that. What I find interesting about this Timberwolves team is they made 12 more three-point shots than the Mavericks did. It is just the 3rd largest three-point margin by a losing team in playoff history, 2nd in conference finals. What do you think that the Timberwolves have to do here to get a win in Game 2? And the series.
It's funny because I actually bet the Mavs plus 4.5 at halftime, looking at the 3-point shots exclusively. I saw the Mavs were like 2 for 19, something like that. And the T-Wolves had hit a bunch. They were like 11 for 25. And the Mavs were down by 3 at that point. And I thought to myself, well, that doesn't add up, right? They've made 9 more threes than them. That's 27 worth of points. And they're only at 3 points. So, is it going to be on the back of threes? I mean, of course, they've leaned on their defense, but Mavs really, really, like I mentioned to you before, they've tightened up their defense. So I think the Wolves got to attack a little more and maybe look to
Yeah.
see if they can work Gafford or Lively, get those guys into foul trouble, because they've been doing a really good job inside. They limited Ant-Man, in there. Yeah, it's an interesting matchup here. I'm going to be very, very intrigued to see how Chris Finch adjusts to this next game too. Where the
Yes.
total has moved down a little bit too. And I think we're going to see defenses on display. Wonder who's going to be able
Yeah.
to kind of execute a little more to grind out a win.
Yeah, I was surprised at how many shots were going in this one, especially because these are two very, very defensive minded teams. Moving on to, by the way, there were some complaints against the product of the NBA, maybe in the first round or in the play-in series, but we have seen some incredible basketball games in the playoffs this year. I mean, it has been neck and neck. So let's move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics barely escaped in overtime, beating the Pacers 133 to 128. Danny, this was a historic level of offense, right? The two teams combined for 261 points. It's the highest scoring game so far this postseason and the most combined points in a conference finals game since 1987. You want to talk about D up? These guys have got it D up. Jason Tatum, 36 points, 12 rebounds, 10 points in overtime. He gets a lot of flack, including from me, about his performance sometimes in the postseason. But this Pacers team is just ridiculous, as you know, as being a Knicks fan, seeing how they played. I think they were 70% in the first half in game 7 of that series. They still shot over 53 once again with their big scoring 47 points against Al Horford. Al's got to step this one up. He's getting cooked. They overcame multiple double-digit deficits, including a 12-0 run by the Celtics to open the game. Now, what did you think of this one? It was interesting to me because what we've seen so far in the Celtics in the postseason is they blow out game 1 and then they end up getting blown out on game 2. And this is not what happened. This series feels a little bit different. They needed overtime to win this game. But when it came down to the A, B, and C's of basketball, when they were able to control the game, they won easily. It's about controlling these Pacers and the pace. But what were your thoughts on game 1?
Yeah, I mean, they're lucky to escape with a win. The Pacers threw the game
Yeah.
away. They got, they had the lead and the ball up, 2 or 3 with like 10 seconds to go. And they, 8.5 seconds to go, something like that. They throw the ball out of bounds, So they gave this one away. Of course, then it took the amazing shot in the corner from Jaylen Brown and then the win in overtime. But like you said, if you can control the pace, you can beat the Pacers, but that is not so easy to do. They'll play with that insane, rushed style, like 8-second offense, whether they're winning or losing. Like that's their style. And if they're down 20, they'll stick to it. If they're up 20, they'll stick to it. Like that was, a lot of people were faulting Halliburton for playing too fast at the end there, right? This guy's sprinting, gliding all over the court. It's like, dude, slow down a little bit, right? They just get, like, they play like a hamster wheel. So,
well, and that's where playoff experience comes into play, though. The Celtics, what's their 3rd Eastern Conference final in the last 3 years? So I think, to your point, watching what Halliburton did and then how the C's kind of took control, that's experience.
Yeah. And of course, clutch shooting too. Tatum was shooting poorly from beyond the arc, but still ended up with 36 points and hit a clutch 3 there at the end to even, get them within that, that to be in that position. So, yeah, but they're lucky to escape with one. They were obviously big favorites. They didn't cover the spread. They're big favorites again, bucking that game 2 trend, right? Now people are pouring their money in on the Celtics to get a game 2 win here. So I'm interested already the action coming in on them. And I feel like they will go up 2-0, but this Pacers team is tough to contain. They're going to give them a good fight.
Yeah, I do think the Celtics have got to clean up their defense inside the paint. Indiana shot 62.5 from the 2-point range in game 1, 66% at the end of regulation. You just cannot allow that and think you're going to squeak out another game. But one thing I will say about the Pacers, they got to take care of the ball. They turned the ball over a ridiculous amount of times. I believe they gave it away like 22 times. It's their second most of the season. They allowed Boston to get 32 points off of those turnovers on Tuesday. So I think Celtics got to clean up their defense inside the paint, and then the Pacers just cannot turn the ball over.
And there you go. As a result, you want to play a track meet, you're going to fumble the ball sometimes, right? So
Yep.
that comes kind of with the style of play. If the Celtics can hone in on their defense a little bit, like 32 points off turnovers, that's massive. That wins games every time. So if they can capitalize on those, they'll win games that they shouldn't have won.
So, what do you think about this series? Obviously, Celtics have heavy favorites in this. Maybe got a little bit more interesting seeing how well the Pacers played in game one, especially because the Celtics had so much rest going into this. I think I'll have to look back on it. I think I've got the Celtics in six in this series, but anything, has this changed the way you bet this series, or how do you think this one ends?
I think it might. I mean, I think the Pacers will definitely give them a scrap. I like Celtics in six. That's a good prediction here. Both of these teams are so reliant on their offense. The Celtics can play good defense. They have very good defensive metrics, but like I said before, the Pacers just get you into track meets, whether you like it or not. And of course, we know the Celtics kind of live and die by the three. You're talking about Al Horford before. I looked at the box score when I was doing my research for these games. He shot 12 threes. I mean, these guys, between Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, everyone, you name Drew Holiday, they're chucking up tons of threes. So sometimes you
Yeah,
live and die by that. If the Pacers are
yeah,
shooting better on some nights, then they could beat them. It's
yeah.
going to come down to that, right? Who's chucking the three ball better? But yeah, I like overs in this series. That's how I'm going to bet them, Katie.
Well, and the Celtics have at least one game where they cannot hit the three ball at all. So, yeah, paying attention to those props, I think, is going to be interesting in this series. Porzingis coming back at some point, I believe, maybe game four. So maybe Al Horford will get a little bit of a break there because he's getting cooked right now.
And how funny, I don't know if Porzingis is going to do that much better. I don't know if he's going to do that much better, but how
There's some
funny is it
help.
all of a Oh, I
Yeah.
was going to say all of a sudden that like Porzingis is the answer. Like, where's Porzingis? We need him to come back. When he was on the Knicks, and there's so many points in his career where he's like, "What does Porzingis do? Get him off the floor. He's ruining it." But
Yes.
now they're
And now
praying
he's
for him
like,
to
we
come back.
can't wait till Porzingis comes back.
With that,
It's
they
funny
love
how
you, then they
things
hate you.
can. Yeah, and look, different years, different teams, different whatever, things can change in this league. All right, we're gonna take a quick break here. When we come back, we're making some bets on the Eastern and the Western Conference Finals with our guy Danny Brasco. It's Moxie Bets. Don't go anywhere. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? Two words: Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the type of benefits only Caesars can offer: hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. Back here on Moxie Bats, presented by Caesars Sportsbook, and we are here with our guy, Danny Brasco. All right, let's move on. Let's make some bets. Let's put our money where our mouth is. Starting here, Danny, with the East. You got the Pacers as 9-point underdogs here. Celtics laying 9. Now, I will say the Celtics were 9.5-point favorites in game one. I took that bet. I lost that bet. So I'm not touching the Celtics in this game, especially because normally this is where they lay their egg. But again, game one didn't play out like the rest of the series did. This total 224.5. What's your bet?
Yeah, I am tempted to take the +9 again. Obviously, feels like a wide, almost double-digit
Yeah.
spread in a game that the
Yeah.
Pacers should have won. So it's tempting, but a little tricky, right? When books don't budge off that line, despite their
Mm-hmm.
last result, I'm almost like,
Mm-hmm. Scares me.
like, right, what do they know here, right? They're not moving, and it's got to be for a reason. So it makes me feel like the Celtics will win, or it'll be at least close to the spread,
Yeah.
and this number will look pretty good. So I'm going to go towards the total, and I talked about how I'm going to have to play overs. I tried out some unders. I got one in the Knicks Pacers series in which we had a blowout that caused that sort of, one of the outlier games where one of the teams only put up 89 points. That's a rarity in any Pacer game, whether offense or defense. The points are going to come for both sides. And this one, I got to go over 224.5 after what I saw in game one. I mean, outrageous scoring, Katie. Take away overtime, it would have still way eclipsed this number.
Yeah.
5 out of 6 meetings between these teams have gone over this number, seeing totals of 250. It eclipsed a regular season total of 248. I mean, I don't know if you can set this total high enough. The pace of play, the lack of defense, the three-point shooting. Give me the over all day, Katie.
So I'm kind of against you in this. I'm fading the Pacers. I'm taking the Pacers under their team total one. So you could, by the way, Celtics could blow them out, right? We could still hit this. And you already kind of hit on this, right? In 4 games against the Celtics, the Pacers offense has been excellent. I mean, you just rattled off some numbers yourself, but they average nearly 120 points per 100 possessions in non-garbage time, right? That is excellent offense. But in the playoffs, they haven't been as strong away from home, right? We know they're perfect at home. They're just 2-5 on the road. And yes, one of those wins was game 7 versus the Knicks, where they believe they had the best single game shooting in performance in NBA playoff
Hey, they
history.
couldn't miss. They couldn't freaking
It's
miss. It was shoot
70%.
75%. I couldn't watch. I was at the bar with my friends. I was like, I'm going home. This is
Oh,
horrible.
another one. And at one point I was like, oh wow, they almost missed 2 in a row. Like, because everything was going in. So we did see a slight dip in efficiency in game 1, and slight, we just talked about they were still like 53%, but it was hard to maintain that. But my thing is that they overcame double-digit deficits in both of these. At some point, these guys are going to run out of gas. At some point, they're gonna have to lay an egg, and this feels like the time where they're just tired. It's a 48-hour turnaround. They had that game 7, and the Knicks put up a really, really hard fight. They overcame these double-digit deficits, and I'm just like, you know what? I think the Celtics are going to D up. They rank number 3 in defensive rating, number 2 in points allowed in the association. I think this is the game where they D up and they slow this pace down. It's going to move to Indiana. It's going to go gangbusters when they get there. But I'm going to fade I'm crossing my fingers on this one, but I'm going to fade the Pacers under their team total 107.5.
It is curiously low, 107.5. I mean, they just way eclipsed that, right? So maybe, right, you would have thought after a game 7 on the road, like they run out of some steam. Game 1, they come out firing. So like
it's this game. This is the game where they run out. If they're going to ever, Danny, this is the game.
Then I'm hoping that the Celtics drop, 120, 125 plus, maybe the Pacers drop 100 or something like that. And there you go. We can catch both. But I could see it. It's possible. In that case, then we're leaning towards Celtics -9, I got to imagine. But hopefully we catch both semi against each other. But let's go Celtics offense then.
Let's go. Celtics are going to blow them out, baby.
Which is something as a Knicks fan watching this series, I was like, why am I rooting for the Pacers? Well, because I obviously can't root for the Celtics. I just turn the TV off. Tough. Like, what am I supposed to do with my heart?
Tough stuff. All right, looking at props for this one, I'm just going to ride the hot hand here and give me Jaylen Brown over 25.5 points. I found this at -102. The odds may have shifted. I locked this in yesterday, actually. The Pacers are the best team in the NBA in terms of points scored, but they're the 4th worst, Danny, in points conceded at 120. Indiana has allowed the most field goals made in isolation in the last 5 games versus the Pacers, including game 1 here. Jaylen has scored between 25 and 30 points in each of those games. And my guy hit the bucket. He showed a lot of moxie, if you will, hitting that bucket, getting them into overtime, then winning the game. So again, riding the hot hand here. I think that he has a great one, and I'm taking him over the 25.5. Stay hot, kid. Stay hot.
I like it, Katie. Also, when you say moxie, I feel like confetti should fall from the ceiling, like slime should hit you, something like giveaway, set off alarm bells and giveaways and stuff, like a game show.
I will say, there has been a resurgence in the word moxie. I hear people in the sports world saying moxie all the time now. He's got moxie, showed a lot of moxie, this and that. I said it the other day, and EK, Eric Casillas on Sportsline, was like, did you just use your own name? Are you speaking in the third person? I'm like, no, bro. Just because my name is also Moxie does not mean that I cannot use one of the greatest adjectives in the world. I also think gumption is a little underutilized. I might bring that one back as well.
Anyways, it's a great one. Gumption, right? You just feel that one in your gut. Like if you have it, you feel it, right? Yeah, I like that one a lot.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Glad.
5-2, by the way, Katie. 5-2 to the over on the road are the Pacers. So that probably speaks to their lack of defense on the road. Celtics probably going to run it up.
Not good for my under.
Well, no, it could be Celtics scoring,
Oh, right. You're right. Yes. I see what you're saying.
Even worse.
Okay, good.
And also, I like that point you had on Jaylen Brown's isolation looks. Like they'll go to him one-on-one all the time. So if he's scoring efficiently, their Pacers are doing poorly guarding, in isolation. He's going to cook them all day. Coming off that shot, how do you not ride with the guy? I like it.
All right. What are you looking for prop bet wise?
I'm going to a guy I didn't think I would be going to. It's Drew Holiday, sort of one of the forgotten guys.
I mean, he was
such a talented.
He was clutch.
He was super clutch. He played really well. And such a talented player that we almost I feel like he's the forgotten guy on the team between all the scoring prowess of Jason Tatum, Derek White, who's playing so well, and of course Jaylen Brown. Drew Holiday is this guy that's just sort of doing the little things, but hasn't had necessarily a star-powered season. You're not going to see him on any top 10 leaders by any means, but he's a guy that they can go to when everyone else gets crowded and they run you off the 3-point line. Holiday's 4 of 8 from 3 in 2 of the last 3 games. So he's going to get the open looks. I saw him shooting 8 threes. I like that. I'm going to go over 24.5 points, rebounds, and assists, I should have said. And of course, we know he can pass. He can grab rebounds. Yeah. He can do all the little things. And when he's getting forgotten out there, he's playing good minutes. I just also feel like he's a matchup problem for McConnell and Halliburton. They can't guard him. And I like the versatility that he's offering the Celtics right now. Give me the over points, rebounds, and assists on Holiday.
I love that. I mean, look at, all things that we're saying are pointing to the C's covering this 9.5, but for whatever reason, I'm so afraid to touch it.
But we haven't done it.
All right, so moving on. Yeah, moving on to the West. Mavericks are still 5-point underdogs despite winning outright in game 1. You get them plus 162 on the money line over at our friends Caesar Sportsbook. Minnesota, of course, laying 5 here, minus 195 to win outright. This total 208. Danny, the king of the unders. We locking that in?
You know, I have to. I love it. And by the way, I got to say, my crown is getting some chinks in the armor because some of these NBA unders are not. I mean, if you talk about Pacers series,
it's the Game of Thrones, baby. It's the Game of Thrones.
It's been wild.
You play the Game of Thrones. What is it? Once you play the Game of Thrones, you live or you die, or what is the? Do you remember?
I can't remember. It's been so many years. You get crushed on the wheel, the ladder of power, something like that.
I think it's once you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. Anyways, continue.
You win or you die. And if you bet unders, that some of them have been dying here to insane scoring. But I will bet them in Mavs games and Wolves games. We saw in the game 7 of the Wolves versus Nuggets that the total was set at 197.5. And it ended up getting back up to 201, but it hit the under hit there pretty easily, right? So odds makers not afraid to set some low totals here. And I think in this series, they're much more likely to hit than, say, the Eastern Conference Finals, where there's no defense at all. Mm-hmm. These are 2 of the elite defenses right now in the NBA. The total opened at 208. I see it already moving to 207.5 with everyone and their mother early on the over, of course, because the over hit in game 1. So I'm expecting these defenses to dial in. We saw a lack of 3-point efficiency from the Mavs and pretty good 3-point shooting from the Wolves. Jaden McDaniels going off. That's going to cool down. I think positive and negative regression on both sides, go back to the average a little bit. And the total will likely go under 208 here. So I'm looking for defenses to lock in. Maybe we see one of those kind of 190 total scrappy games. That's going to be another close one, I feel.
I love that. I do think the points are going to be hard to come by. And this is just a lean for me right now. I'm still deciding on this one, but I think I'm going to grab the points with the Mavericks again. Now, I think the Timberwolves win this game. I've got the T-Wolves winning in 7. But I still think that the Timberwolves might be a little bit gassed. We saw them slow down in scoring in the second half, just 43 points compared to 62 in the first 2 quarters. So I think that the Mavs can do enough to stay around. I still don't think that there's really an answer for Luka. And Kyrie was winning the Ant-Man battle. So I'm leaning on taking the points right now with the Mavericks. I'll kind of see how this goes. But if points are hard to come by and this is lower scoring, I think that taking the underdog also isn't a bad look.
Yeah, it would be surprising to see him go up 2-0 right away. But honestly, I feel like the Mavs, it could be Luka's year. I almost want to, I should bet this earlier.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think they could end up being in the finals with the Celtics, perhaps. Because, like you said, there's no answer for Luka. There's not going to be an answer for Luka. And if Kyrie outplays Ant's still 22 years old. He's been amazing. And he's been such a leader. He's brought the whole team up, right? They gravitate towards him. He's their guy already. But I don't know if he's ready to take this step right away. And I think the Mavs might end up having more firepower for them. So maybe in this game, the spread is right there, the same exact number. So it's always curious to see odds makers post the same number. But I do like the Mavs to win this series, and I expect close games throughout.
I agree. So speaking of Luka, I was looking at his 3-point line because I have noticed that he's had to rely more on his outside shooting in the postseason, right? Because he's battling that knee injury that he suffered in the first round. And I was looking at his 3-point line, which was shady. It was like 2.5, and it was juiced to the freaking moon. So I'm taking an alt line on Luka. I'm taking him to have 4+ threes. You can find this at +117. If we look at the last few games, he was 3 of 10 from the 3-point line in this last game, 4 of 6 against that last game against the Thunder. And then he was 5 of 11. So we know that he could heat up. We've seen that happen. I mean, my guy scored a ridiculous amount of points outside the paint. Now, of course, field goal attempts, but I think he's going to be shooting some threes. I don't think he's still protecting that knee. He's not getting inside the paint like that. He's doing all of his work on the outside. Give me Luka to hit 4 threes at +117.
That step back day is just too lovely. He does it in slow motion. Ha, 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 ha. You know it's coming, and he just, he drains it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So how do you dislike that? I mean, the 3-point shooting has been on display. PJ Washington, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. Every night there's someone on the Mavs that is just going off from range, and why not Luka here? I like it. Katie, I'll go to the other side. I'll take a prop on Karl Anthony Towns going over 20.5 points. I really think similarly to, we were talking about Kyrie being the Robin to the Batman for Luka, like that's got to be Cat for Anthony Edwards here. And I think Anthony Edwards has really given him a lot of confidence to kind of step up and be that guy. Last game, he only got put in 16 points, but he shot 9 threes. It was only 2 of 9 from 3, but like 3 or 4 of them rattled in and out, especially in clutch time. They were trying, move him away from, off the ball, without the ball. He was running over screens, getting open looks, and they were setting up a lot of really good action to him. He just couldn't quite fall. 6 of 20 from the field, Katie, and he only fell 4 points under this number. So if he shoots a little more efficiently, I think he's going to end up going over 20 points. We see a pattern in the Nuggets series. He had a poor shooting night, then he had a good one, and he went over this line. Same thing happened for about 4 games in a row, and I expect it to happen once more. So look for Cat to step up a little bit, try to give them that scoring burst when Ant isn't necessarily dropping 40 points every night, right? It's got to be Cat. Give me over 20.5 points.
I love that look. I'm going to tail that one with you. Danny, thank you so much for joining us today. You can follow him on social at Brasco Bets. He has brought back the pick of the day on Instagram, and they've been hitting, my friend.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I got to be honest. Always transparent. First 2 hit, then a little ice streak. I'm 2 and 3 now all of a sudden. So back on the horse we go, Katie.
You know what? But the good analysis goes into these. You're free to make your own decisions. But if you like free picks, make sure you follow at Brasco Bets for the pick of the day. And you get full transparency, people, as well. You can also read his articles on sportsline.com. UFC. What's the next big fight coming up, Danny?
I know UFC this weekend, but UFC 302 in Newark, New Jersey. Kind of exciting East Coast one.
You going?
And it's a big... No, I'm not going, but some of my buddies are. One of my MMA analyst buddies, Slick, is going to be in the building. He's going to try to bring a GoPro and get crazy in there, so meet a bunch of fighters.
Nice.
So it's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, it's a big fight night, big pay-per-view. So I'm looking forward to that one next Saturday.
Okay, so make sure you follow Danny at Brasco Bets. Check out his articles on Sportsline. You can always catch him right here on Moxie Bets. Thanks, everyone, for joining with us. This has been Moxie Bets, presented by Caesar Sportsbook. We'll see you next time.